Yeah. And ask questions as we go. This is, as I was just saying to Nisi, I could talk about this like fundraising for a week, like just constant. So I want to get to what you want to get to, because there's a million places we could go here, and tell us what you want to hear, because we can talk about it. It's all good stuff.
I'm on the opposite side. I absolutely hate fundraising. But I think that's a great perspective, because what that means is I can find those gaps and holes and missed opportunities and things like that, we sometimes have when we're in a tunnel of fundraising. So
It's not a thing that most people fall into naturally or love. It is something that it is a skill that can be trained, though. You can learn how to fundraise. And I think the more you do it, the more comfortable you become. There's lots of tips and tricks, and we can talk about that too, if that's something you want to know.
or you can be like me and run and hide. No,
No,
just kidding.
not if, yeah.
Just kidding. All right. We will go ahead and get started. I know that there's that little glitch, and so we'll just let people in as they come, and they'll see your introduction, so they'll probably do their own introduction as well. If you want to stay off camera, that's completely fine with us. We understand that people are probably burnt out from Zooms and don't want to be on camera again. Not a problem. Leslie, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, I'll put your bio up.
All righty. That's a whole lot of blah, blah, blah. So what I will tell you about me is I have had every job in the nonprofit sector pretty much that you could possibly have. I've been the CEO, the chief development officer, the chief program officer, the chief operating officer. The only thing I haven't been is the chief financial officer, and no one wants me to be that. I also, though, have had pretty much every seat on the volunteer side. I've been the chair of the board, the philanthropy chair. I have been the treasurer. That was a little scary. Whatever board. Plus, I've been the person, like that washes the dishes and takes out the trash. So I get the full scope of the nonprofit world. I have personally never founded a nonprofit. I have founded businesses, but not a nonprofit. But I work very closely with a lot of startups and have that experience as well. I would say besides sort of leadership, CEO, executive director positions, my other strength, I came up through the nonprofit sector in the development side. I did not come up through programming. I have programming in my background, but my biggest work was in development. So I understand all the different nuances of development. I understand your fears. I understand the successes. So let's talk. And that's who I am. And I'm very happy to talk to you today. And I'm also very happy to follow up with you afterwards. Please feel free. You have my contact information on some slide somewhere. And I will be happy to drop it into the chat, but I'm also willing to have a follow-up conversation if that's helpful to you.
Perfect. Thank you. And I am Nisi. I am actually, my profession is public health nurse. And I kind of went from emergency readiness into mental health, behavioral health components, a lot of community inclusion. And I know you're thinking, how does a public health nurse get into marketing and fundraising? Like, where did that come from? My first experience was with American Heart Association. This is aging me, but they had this new thing that came out called Facebook Pages. And they were like, does anybody know how to work this thing? And I was like, I can try. And that's where I fell in love with marketing. As a public health nurse, I realized that there was a huge component for us. Oh, can you hear me now? Did I freeze?
No, I think you're good.
Okay. I saw the interrupt or, unstable thing up. So just, give me a buzz if you don't see me moving or talking. And I realized there's a huge gap in communication in nonprofits, specifically when it comes to fundraising. The biggest misconception is if we put it out there, it will come, and that's not the case at all. And so there's a lot of technique and opportunities that kind of get left on the table. And that's kind of what we're going to slide through today. No pun intended. All right. We are conversation over curriculum facilitators. And so we would rather have conversations with you guys about any concerns or gaps or frustrations or whatever, because we think that you are going to catch a better message. So feel free to raise your hand, unmute, whatever that looks like. We can catch back up. So starting with the first slide, some of the things that you got to do is, before you get started, do some prep work, right? We want to make sure that you understand, we don't want you to just have your mission vision statement because it, is that thing that you're supposed to have as a nonprofit. But it's extremely important. Leslie, you want to talk about the importance of that mission statement?
It is everything. It is how you tell the world who you are. And if you don't have a message, you don't, oh, sorry. I should turn that off. If you don't have a message around your mission, you're not going to get money. And without money, there is no mission. It is a very clear, direct connection. Mission needs money to exist, and the money needs a message to generate. You need a message to generate money. So make sure your mission is very clear. That's the work you do. The vision is your end state. You're looking for a world that has no issues with hunger, or you're looking to improve the city hunger issues. You want there to be nobody that goes hungry in your city. I'm making these things up, but that's a vision. A mission is, we will deliver 3 hot meals a day through our church to alleviate the hunger issue in our community. That's a really bad mission statement. Don't use that. But it's the mission is the action, and the vision is the end state. Like, what are you trying to get to?
Yeah.
But have that, and have it clear. Don't have it nebulous, and don't have it so broad that people are like, well, how the heck? Yes, we will be sharing this recording. You got it. And for folks that are just joining, please feel free to drop in the chat your name of your company, your role. Oh, you already put that in there. Yeah. Thank you, Nisi. Nisi is always like 15 steps ahead of me, and I'm like running to catch up. So please, though, if you didn't see that in the chat, please drop your name and what you'd like to learn today, your organization and your role. But so mission is huge. Be specific. I've literally seen people say, we want to help people in our community as a mission. I'm like, yep, that is not a mission. That is a wishful statement of something. Be specific. They'll get off. Mm-hmm.
Very true. The next thing you want to do before you start thinking about how to raise funds is have a strategic plan. I think the biggest thing that is missing for a lot of nonprofits is taking a step back and saying, okay, strategically, what do we want to do? Because you're not going to be able to fix everything the same year, and you're not going to be able to put all of the work in the first month, right? Having that strategic annual plan gives you the opportunity to see what you actually have the bandwidth to do and what can be accomplished and what type of fundraising you should be doing with your strategic plan. So just take some time to think about that. Also, long-term fundraising. A lot of times we do that quick turnaround stuff. We got to have an event, how about some dollars? But what about in 3 or 4 years from now? What plans, what things are you putting in place, like an endowment that you can take care of yourself, in 10 years from now? So whatever that looks like. Okay.
Yeah, I want to concur, like the beginning work, if you're just starting, you don't need necessarily a thing called a strategic plan, but you do need a plan. You need a business plan. Where are you going? What are you trying to accomplish? How are you going to do it? Because you need something to bounce off opportunity. So you don't end up chasing money mission creep. So put yourself on paper. This is what we do, and this is how we're going to do it. It does not mean you've carved it in stone and you will never do anything differently or in a different way. But at least at every point in your growth, you should have some bumpers, right? Some parameters that give you some decision-making guidelines. Because it's very easy to see like, oh, so-and-so's offering a grant for this kind of thing. We can do that. It's not what you can do. It's what can you manage. And if you keep adding, you're not going to ever get ahead. You have to really be clear on what are you trying to accomplish. And if you're doing well in that, and then later on down the path, you feel like you can add something in, please do, but don't just jump from thing to thing, especially. Jennifer, is that a hand clap you're doing there?
Yes.
Woohoo! Thank you. Okay, that's my
on that one.
on that. Yeah, because I could go on and on.
I know we've got like 7,000 slides. It's not 7,000. Yeah. We've got a lot of slides. I know you guys have a lot of stuff.
Let's talk about. Yes, thank you, Jennifer, for the hand clap.
So a budget. So it does cost money to make money, and you need to understand your bandwidth. What can you spend? You might say, oh, it's great. We can do, a texting fundraiser, but it costs money to sign up for those things. So what does that look like? Just having a budget. And that depends on kind of the maturity of your nonprofit. Some budgets are more sophisticated than others. But you want to have an idea. We see a lot of organizations lose money because they don't understand the value of creating a budget or system to work within so that they can raise money.
Yeah. And you have to, it's like anything, you're going to get out of it what you put into it. If you do things at very superficial level, you're not going to grow in the way that you want to grow. And by growth, I do not mean necessarily bigger. I mean stronger. It's like growing muscle. You're not growing in inches, but you're growing in muscle. So you want the muscle more than the size, right? But you do have to know, what is it going to cost me? And may I implore you, beg you, to look at this from a realistic point of view, not a place of scarcity, not a place of, I will work for nothing and I will get everyone else to work for nothing. That is not a sustainable model. Let me repeat myself. Working for nothing and expecting others to work for nothing or less than a living wage or even at a living wage is not sustainable, particularly in today's economy. And I get the economy is changing and there's a lot we could argue about that. But my point is, be a part of an ecosystem that values equity, that values the skills and the talents of those that you work with. Be a part of a system that values yourself. And yes, it may be your passion, but you cannot feed yourself on passion. And if you ever stepped down as the leader of the organization, which you probably will at some point, you are not going to find someone that will do it for nothing. So start off with being very, very realistic. Thank you, Andrea. Amen. I agree. Start off with understanding the real costs. Even if you get something for free, someone says, oh, I'll give you office space. That's lovely. But put it in your budget, put it in as an expense and then an in-kind gift. So you're showing the cost. It doesn't go off your books. It stays on your books.
Yeah, definitely. This one's a real quick one. We're going to help you kind of figure out like where do you land in your fundraising plan, but you should still have a plan. You do not want to put all your eggs in one basket. And so that means you've got to create some sort of plan or system or process. So okay, if we're not good at events, then we do not want to have it as part of our plan to raise funds, right? We don't have the resources or the capacity to hold events. Same is true for if you're not technology savvy, you might not want to do those tech events. So just be mindful when we say plan, we don't mean always hardcore in the books, on tile plan. It just means have a system in place to take care of yourselves.
Completely. People, I can't tell you how many people I hear say, we're just going to write a grant, a singular grant. Good luck with that. You have to have a diversified fundraising model. Do not rely all on one thing. And we're going to give you some guidance on what's the most efficient way to raise money. Boards will often say, well, let's have an event. Not the most efficient way to raise money. There might be other reasons to have an event and then you will make money, and that's okay. I'm not an anti-event. Nobody likes a good gala better than me, but it is not the most efficient way to raise money. So, and whatever you do, don't do all one thing. Make sure you have an event and you have some grant writing and you have individual giving and, the and. And yes, it takes a lot to manage it, but that's why the organization, this series is called So You Want to Start a Nonprofit, Don't. Because if you can't manage it, don't do it. But if you can, you got to manage all of this.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a lot. That's what we're trying to tell you.
It's a lot.
Feel like it's a lot. You're correct. It is a lot. This one is probably my favorite, pre-work that you should do. Start building your donor database now. So for those, I know a couple of you said, I haven't quite started yet. I'm getting ready to start. Here's a really easy, quick way that you can start building that donor database. Start a newsletter. Provide information and resources about what it is that you are going to start your nonprofit in. Start a newsletter, add people to that newsletter, get those people into your system once you have a system to manage your donor database. But you don't want to say, okay, we're going to do an email campaign and you've got 12 people in your email list, right? Or we're going to host an event, but you only know about 20 people in your city. So be really mindful that you have got to start this donor database as soon as possible. And you can do it without having your 501c3, without having a website, without having any of that stuff. You can jump on LinkedIn and start collecting emails for people to subscribe to your newsletter and so on and so forth. But definitely start to get your supporters as soon as possible.
Completely agreed. And it does not have to be a fancy, you have to have Salesforce or Bloomerang or whatever. You can start with a spreadsheet. You really can, but be very intentional of the data that you're tracking and that you're keeping. Because someday, if you're successful, and I am praying you will be, you're going to upload all of that into a robust system that will help you manage that data. But it's going to be the proverbial garbage in, garbage out if you don't do it right. So make sure you have you're not typing in all capital letters for one and no lowercase for another. Make sure you're consistent, that it's whatever you say, first name, last name, or last name, first name. I don't care how you do it, but be consistent. Make sure you have if you can get a physical mailing address, great, an emailing address, a phone number, get as much information, and you will grow this over time, but make sure you have the columns, the fields ready for this information. You also then want to track, how are you talking to them? I'm sending them a newsletter, check. I've had a personal conversation with them. Yes, what date? What's my next action with this donor? Track what you've done with them. It doesn't have to be hyper sophisticated, but it needs to be thorough. You need to know where you are with every donor. And I don't mean every $20 donor you have to have a personal list on, but you have to know that that $20 donor is getting your newsletter. That's it's whatever's appropriate.
Yeah.
Someone might not be on mute. I don't know. There we go. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. So there we go.
All right. So here's all the things that we're going to be running through today. And I do mean that literally, because that's a lot of stuff, a lot of opportunities. and lots of ways you can split each one of these, right? So from individual donor stewardship, direct mail, events, online donations, prospecting, email marketing, text to give, partnerships and sponsorships, grants, and peer-to-peer fundraising. That's a lot. I don't recommend you do all of them in a year. I think you pick the ones that are most appropriate for you, your organization, and what it is that you're trying to achieve. And that's what this training is about today. We're going to give you a sample of expectations around these different ways to fundraise. And then you can make the decision, okay, I think this would be a good way for us to make money. Or you can say, you know what, I thought we were going to do events, but you know what, I don't want to touch that. And so that's what we hope that you get from that today. So we're going to start off with individual donor stewardship. And Leslie, I will let you take that one on because
So
that
individual donors, thank you. I didn't mean to step on your knees, too,
Good.
sorry. It's so a donor goes through a full cycle of steps in a relationship with you, from first identifying them through to stewardship, right? So it's identification through to stewardship. And you, first and foremost, the reason we're starting with individuals is because individuals contribute the most amount of money philanthropically annually, year in, year out, decade in and decade out, for probably the last 80 or 90 years in the United States. So when people say, oh, well, I'm just going to write a grant, I'm thinking, man, you're leaving a lot of money on the table, because foundation grants are about 15%, maybe 10, between 10 and 15% of annual philanthropic giving in America. So if you're spending 100% of your time on 15% of the money that's available, I don't think that math works out very well. But individual giving is not as clear as the path is not as clear. It takes more relationship building. There's not like, fill out this form, attach these documents, send it in. It's not that clear. It's not that straightforward. You got to get to know them. When I do a lot of training on individual giving. I used to manage all individual giving for the National American Red Cross. And I would say to people, and I stole this from someone else, Jerry Panis. If you ever have a chance to read a book of Jerry, is no longer with us, but he was a great man and a really great author. And most of his books are very small, easy to digest. Read them. Jerry Panis, Panas. But he taught me, I put up a slide that's of a cow. And the point is, can't get milk from a cow by sending it a letter. It is an up close and personal experience. And that's what individual giving is. It's an up close and personal experience. For you just to do this mass mail and think people are going to send you money, they're not. You might get some money, but it's not really how individual giving works. There is direct mail, and there's a certain demographic that works with. And direct mail now also can be email, the old direct mail still works, but it's different than it used to be. But individuals, you need to meet them, you need to talk to them, you need to listen to them, what is important to them in their philanthropic mindset. Some want to help lots of different people in lots of different ways, and some want to just focus on one area. That doesn't make them a bad person, and it also doesn't make them a useless contact. They may know other people. They may look to you in the future. They could tell someone else about you. There's lots of reasons to leave people in your database, even if you don't think you're going to get a gift from them, but mark it so, because you don't want to bug them or ask inappropriately when you know it's not their thing. But there's nothing wrong with their permission, of course, to stay in contact with them. But individuals, as I said, you've got to get to know them. You have to understand what is important to them in their philanthropic legacy. You have to ask. People wait to be asked. Asking is not as scary as you think it is, because you have done all the groundwork. You've invited them to see your organization at work. right now I'm working with a client that runs a very non-traditional multidisciplinary therapy center, and it's a beautiful, beautiful place. I say to them all the time, your best asset is this center. Invite people here, have them see these children that are, and adults that are having really innovative therapies. They're happy. It's a bright, shiny place. Most of these children are profoundly impacted by their disabilities, but they're cared for and loved. And this place has lots of natural light, and it's colorful, and kids love to come there. That's their best-selling tool. So likewise, use your best-selling tool, which is your mission in action, to get the donor closer and closer to you. And I don't mean you personally, I mean your mission. You want people to be giving to your mission, not to you. Now, people give because they trust the person, but you've got to get them connected to the mission. The mission has to be what pulls them in, because if you're a development director and you leave, it's going to be a different story. So individual giving is worth every effort you can give it.
Absolutely. And that's probably the most important thing that you'll learn about this presentation is that leverage of individual giving, because you're catering to them. That's why it's a stewardship. So this one's pretty quick and simple, I think. Direct mail can work if you understand who you're sending it to. So oftentimes in our older donor pool, what happens is they like the tangible thing. They like the postcard. They like the newsletter. I remember my grandmother had stacks and stacks of return address stickers from American Heart Association. And she was always happy to give because she got something in that transaction, right? And so just be mindful, this could work if you have the right audience for it. This works good for associations, police departments, fire departments, food banks, things like that. In those spaces, it works really well because that kind of matches the audience of evergreen givers. And so just understand who your audience is and what that looks like. Some of the downsides of direct mail, or the cons of it, is the tracking is extremely hard. Unless you have a tool built in, whatever you're sending them, it's really hard to tell how they came across you, how they're sending money. You're adding steps to the process. Somebody asked me for a check last week, and I was like, a check of what? It just did not compute in my head that they needed a written paper check, because it's so long since I've had to write one, right? And so does your audience do your donors have checks, or are they, debit card people? Are they tap to pay kind of people? That's when you need to be in your individual donor stewardship, because that's when you get to know who your people are. We also have another segment on prospecting, and that kind of helps you learn as well who your people are. Anything to add to the direct mail? Or do you want to go ahead and go to events?
I'll just give a couple of little insights
Mhm.
onto direct mail. Direct mail is not a one and done thing. Direct mail is, you have to be repetitive. Why do you see it from your local food bank? 5 times a year you get a mailing, or from the American Red Cross, or from the ones that you still get in the mail. It works, number one. They wouldn't still be doing it if it didn't work, but it is not a one and done. I can tell you, when I was at the American Red Cross, you would send all these letters over the course of the year, and you'd get all the envelopes are tracked. There's codes on them. So we knew what the mailing was, and we would get the mailing from like 5 mailings ago, that envelope. They save them. I'm not really sure what that means. I don't understand it. It's just that they're like, oh yeah, they put it in there to pay pile, and they don't do it that week. And then they get, months go by, and they get another letter, and they say, oh yeah, I need to do that. And they go back to their original, in their bills to be paid pile, and use that envelope. I don't know why, but it's real. And so my point is, it is those multiple touch points that get them to the place of, oh, I'm going to do that today. You cannot send one piece of mail and expect the gross majority to reply. It just doesn't work that way. You've got to do it with routine. 4 times a year would be the minimum, I would suggest, but it's got to have a pattern, and there's got to be a hook. Do it now because it's you know,
Thanksgiving.
National Hunger Month
Yeah.
and whatever, or it's Thanksgiving, or it's whatever. Like,
Mhm.
have a hook, and it's got to be head and heart. It's got to be what you write, and keep it short. Who reads? No one. So like, have it bulleted, quick points, easy to digest, what their dollar will do. I mean, the food bank is so good. Your dollar feeds 7 people. It's like blood. Your 1 pint saves 3 lives. You know, you've got to have it in a digestible, quick format, and then repeat it and repeat it again, and then say it one more time.
Agreed. Absolutely agreed. The next one we have is events. I am probably your biggest anti-event person that you will find. The greatest insight someone gave me was this: you can have an event or you can have a check. If you had to pick, which one is easier to get? The check. And so anytime somebody's like, oh, we want to host a luncheon or a gala, I always say, can we just get a check from somebody for this? Right? Or a couple of checks instead of hosting this event. I think it's also important that the event is not just the funds raised, it's the networking opportunities for the guest. It's an opportunity for your guest to be the hero and the equation. It's an opportunity for you to build new people. So if somebody buys a table, don't allow them to just bring whoever. Collect those names and emails of the guests that are coming, individual registration. That will help you build your mailing list. Just be mindful. Events are a lot. It's a lot of work, even small, simple events. And so, do you have the bandwidth to still run your nonprofit and host an event at the same time? I see a lot of small nonprofits pretty much shut down because they're so focused on running this or hosting this event that they can't do their everyday program work. So just be mindful that events are great if you understand what you're using them for, and it's not just the dollar, but know your bandwidth as well.
I will agree on everything. Nisi and I do not practice this in advance and decide to agree on everything. Why we're agreeing is because this is what's tried and true. This is what's real. If most organizations who host events, if they wrapped in the number of manpower hours as a paid line item, they would lose money. So is it better to go and develop 10 good individual gift relationships and get $10,000 from 10 of them, and then you have $100,000, than to net $100,000 on an event? Yes, because you're probably not really netting it if you wrapped in the manpower hours, your volunteer hours, your work, your staff's work. All of that will be better served in a deeper relationship with an individual donor or a corporation. Now, on the pro side, if you're looking to expand your reach in the community and have more people know about you, a good event is good for that. So have some metrics that you're measuring around that, though. So it's not just, if you want to net $100,000 and you want to gain 100 new contacts or 50 new contacts, make that a part of your measurement for the event, a part of what defines success. And events do not have to be big fancy galas. They're the most expensive, and frankly, a lot of people are really dang tired of going to them. What they can be is, they can be an evening gala, they can be a luncheon, they can be a breakfast. Luncheons are much more efficient. You start at 11:30, you are done by 1. You start at noon, you're done by 1:30. They're 90 minutes, they are tight. An evening thing can sometimes go on, and then there's an after party and everyone's like, oh, please just let me go home. They can also be fun, family-friendly things. They can be an event at a park. It can be anything. I also will tell you, if you're going to do a big splash, any kind of big event, and I'm saying that you want to raise $50,000 or $100,000. have an event planner, pay for it. You will do better. You will produce a better event, and thus you will improve your reputation, or your reputation will remain solid, because if you have a bad event, your reputation is going to go down the drain. You will more likely than not raise more money than you would have. But people come away with this sense like, oh, these people really know what they're doing. And I get it. You're like, you're asking me to spend more money. Yes, I am. Remember the very first slide? It takes money to make money. Like you've got to put into this what you want to get out of it. My guess is none of you are professional event planners. So if you don't have that experience planning an event, negotiating contracts with vendors, knowing all the minutia that goes into it, doing a run of show, all of that is a lot of work. If you're out there trying to save the world, it's hard for you to be an event planner too. So hire somebody. Your reputation will benefit from it. Your self-care will benefit from it. You cannot be all things. Maybe you have someone on your board or two, someone's that maybe could share it and take some of the load off of you. I would still hire an event planner. It does not mean that the board doesn't have a role. They always will have a role. And because the board is often the first ones that say, let's have an event. Okay, if you want to have an event, here's what we're going to need from each of you, and be very clear on what the expectations are. Some boards will say, okay, we can do it. And some boards won't. And then if they won't, don't do it.
And that's a great way to get out of an event also.
That's right. That's right.
One event, okay, we need you to volunteer, and you will
Here's what you need to do. Yep. You need to sell tickets, and you need to serve on the committee, and you need to get silent auction items, and you need to, pick out the menu and all the blah, blah, blah.
For you, right?
Yeah. Just write me a $10,000 check and everything.
Exactly. That's where you'll get that check over the event every single time, right? The next one we have is online donations. So here's the thing about this. This is also not a if we create it, they will come kind of thing. Be careful not to just put donate here all over your website. And don't make every post on social media donate here as the call to action. Online donations are great. This is kind of the easiest barrier to kind of reach people, especially if you're trying to build your audience. Most social media platforms have an opportunity for you to provide donations or connect your nonprofit to their social media platform. The problem is that people see donate now all the time, all over the place, and they have no connection to your nonprofit. And so we have this high expectation that if we have the donate now button on our website, people will just decide magically one day to come and donate to us. And that's not how it works. If you do have that donate now button on your website, I recommend that you have some data to support it. How many people are going to that website? How often are you sharing that link? What kind of funds have you made from that donate now button, right? Because if it's not making you anything, what's the point of having it there? There's a better way, especially on a website, to give people a narrative or a story or an investment and purpose to donate, as opposed to just having that kind of button pop up everywhere or some floating button everywhere. Just be strategic in that and understand that people are seeing donate now all over the place. So what does that look like for your nonprofit?
Yeah, there's a lot of donor fatigue, as we say in the cons there. It does not mean that everyone is fatigued. It is, I would say a lot of people are fatigued by the same old, same old. So they're not fatigued by a personal conversation. They're not fatigued by someone saying, how does this matter to you? They may then choose to give to you online. I chair a board here in San Antonio, and I give online. I'm a major gift donor to this nonprofit. However, it's convenient, but it doesn't mean that if I didn't upfront and personal know the mission, that I would give that way just because. So it is a yes, and you will You can do campaigns around online giving. You can, but as with everything, be strategic, know your goals, know your intention, know what audience you're talking to. There's all these important aspects. Monthly donations are a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful thing. Do we have another slide on monthly donation, or is that in here?
No, we don't specifically
Yeah.
have monthly donations. Yeah, this would kind of
So
be
let's talk about that for 1 second. So that repeat guaranteed gift, and it's really not, I shouldn't have said guaranteed, but promised gift, is a beautiful way to forecast revenue, right? So getting someone, if you want someone to give you $1,000, ask them to give you online. And if someone sort of cringes and say, how about $100 a month? Okay, well, guess what? You're going to get 20% larger gift, because they're going to give you 12 months of $100. They're not going to stop giving you at 10 months. Some might, but the majority won't. They'll keep it. And because it's easy, it just comes out of their checkbook. It's an automatic thing. They will continue that the next year. They very rarely do they say, and I want to do that. I mean, you can screw it up easy, not thank them, not give them good information, do something terrible that the community knows about. Yep, that'll stop it all. But if you do your part, that $100 will continue to fly, and you will see great revenue for that. So I encourage you to start online giving societies, so to speak, call it something that's related to your mission. And those people that are monthly donors get a little something else. They get, a message from the chair, and then get the board chair to write a little note, every month or whatever. I mean, there's lots of ways you can do it, but do it with intention and know your audience. But the monthly thing online is a great tool.
Yeah, you use a good platform for that. It's very easy to mess that up. You don't want to mess up somebody's money. So use a tried and true platform that makes sense. Also, eat the fees, the processing fee. You don't want somebody to say, I'm going to give $100, and then they have to also pay another $5 fee. Go ahead and eat that. The reason for that is this. I know we used to say, people will just pay the extra, $5 for the processing fee. What happens is there's a giving etiquette when it comes to online giving. And if I'm already asking for your donation and you're already saying yes, I don't want to now rob you basically of another $5, even if it's just $5, because that person might have just $100 to give. So be mindful of your audience. Now, if you have the audience that are like, no, I'll pay the processing fee, doesn't bother me, whatever, allow them. If you're just starting out, you're just crafting your narrative, you're just using these platforms, be really gentle walking into this space, because it's kind of like, free delivery versus a $20 delivery. If I find something on Amazon that's great, and I order it and I'm expecting it to be, $25, and then it costs another $15 for delivery, I'm most likely not going to get it. And you don't want to have any of those kind of barriers for online donations, because you're not there to walk them through why it's important that they pay that processing fee, right? They're doing it whenever it's convenient for them. So just be mindful that sometimes that etiquette is really sensitive, especially for starting out, if that's your first time doing online donations.
Agreed completely.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about prospecting. So this one, traditionally, it's left to those larger nonprofits, but I would say the sooner you start, the better. This kind of falls under that donor stewardship hat. So when you're thinking about prospecting, who are your donors? How much can they give? What can they give? But also, you're treating them kind of like a customer, right? And so when you think about that, where are they at? What are they doing? How are they spending their free time? Are they volunteering, or are they just writing a check? If you're looking for, how much money could they potentially give? There are systems where you can find out that information about wealth indicators, right? And so real estate ownership, if you happen to have a board member that is in a lawyer, they can look up those things very easily for you. Real estate ownership and zip codes, kind of get an idea what price point their house is in. This is important because when you are doing your stewardship and you're saying your starting entry dollar amount is 20 bucks, right? Or whatever that looks like for you. How are you getting them to the next level? Are you going from 20 to 100? Or are you going from 20 to 1,000? Is this individual that you are stewarding able to pay 5,000? Just being mindful of what it looks like and the spaces that they're in. Some easy free ways to do this would be what associations are they participating in? Some associations cost more money than others. That gives you some insight into, maybe what type of free finances they have that they could give. Are they in voluntary groups, Rotary groups, chambers? Where are they at? Who are they with? Kind of thing. This kind of is a little bit investigative, I guess. But what it will do is will help craft your stewardship. So you're taking people from that entry point and you're leading them to what they really truly could be giving. Giving should be a little smidge of a stretch, right? So if I've got $200 that I'm going to use in a year to give to an organization as my default $200, but I potentially could give 250, that's that smidge of a stretch that you understand through prospecting. And what happens is it allows you to say, hey, I noticed that you gave $200 last year. Is it possible to give 250? Or we noticed that you gave $200 last year. Is it possible to give 1,000 without really upsetting folks saying, how are you going to ask me from 200 to 1,000, right? Just taking that time. This does require work. This is a resource activity. I would be strategic if you need to use it on a certain level. So I would be thinking of like capital campaigns, opportunities to donor match. These would be great initiatives if you have board members that like to give at the end of the year, and do a match at the end of the year with their giving. If they're giving 5,000, do a match to it. And then, try to optimize that. But again, this is just another way of thinking about how you're going to raise those funds. Leslie, anything on prospecting?
I think you've really covered most things. I will just say that it is worth the effort. The more you get to know a donor, the better. The flip side of that coin, I will say, is don't be paralyzed by the process. I've had more major gifts officers saying to me, I can't call on Mr. and Mrs. Jones because I don't know enough about them. Unless you know nothing, you probably know enough, because they will tell you everything you need to know about them. It is amazing how much people will tell you about themselves. I've been doing this for a very long time. I have had innumerable conversations with major gift donors, and I'm still shocked at what they tell me. They will tell me why they give to certain organizations and why they don't give to other organizations. They will tell me about how they're trying to keep money from their kids, or they're trying to like, okay, I don't really need to know all that, but thank you. But then you have to remember confidence. You cannot be repeating this everything you learn is confidential. And they're trusting you, and all that's a test about your trust. But they will tell you what you need to know. I talk to prospects a lot about what's important to you in your philanthropic legacy. What do you want your philanthropic footprint to look like? People are really interested in that kind of question. You make it whatever language, but in other words, what matters to you? Where do you want to invest? in your community at large. Some people, spread it far and wide. Some people are very intense on, I just want to work in this sector. All of that is fine. It's personal. But it's important for you to know that about them, because then you can tailor your request. You can tailor your activities with them. I was just last night talking about a very elderly donor to this organization I work with, and we want this person to come and see their facility. And they're having an open house because it's their 20th anniversary. And the executive director and I agreed, this is not the place for this woman. She is elderly. She does like to get out, but she comes with a companion and she's in a wheelchair, and an open house with a lot of people is not it. So we're going to invite her for a special tour, and just her and her companion and the executive director and probably me. But so it's knowing that donor, what will suit them, and accommodating that. And does it feel like a lot? Yep, it is a lot. But if you want financial success, you've got to invest in all these things. And to the point, let me rephrase that by saying you need to pick what you're going to invest in and do it well. You cannot do all of these things as a single person in a organization, or even as the CEO with no development director, even if you have a program manager and all that. You're going to have to pick and choose, but whatever you choose, do it well.
Perfect. Email marketing. I love email marketing. It's probably my favorite way to fundraise, but there's a lot of work that goes in the front end before you hit send. You got to know what your goal is for your users. You got to have your users segmented, meaning you've already done your donor stewardship. You know who your people are. You've built your email list. You know how they came in, or how they found you, or how you got their email. You know their last gift and how it was given to you. Once you've collected all this information, whatever email portal that you're using, you want it segmented. All of that information that Leslie talked about before, like having that spreadsheet of information, all of that's important, especially when you're doing email marketing. Email marketing can be a kind of one and done, but not really. So you're collecting all this information because you're segmenting people so that when they receive an email from you, or an email chain from you, it's strategic, and you're being intentional in your requests and in your topic conversation. So let's say, let me just go back to empowerment education. Okay. So if I'm talking about education, there's different components of education that are important to different people, right? So some people feel like the arts of education is more important. Some people feel like STEM is more important. Some people feel like, that holistic child component is more important. When you sent out your newsletter each month and there was a click to this or a click to that, you should be segmenting. So if I send out a newsletter and it has 3 or 4 different topics in it, each topic should come with a segment for me to identify that this individual is interested in this particular topic. Because when I'm ready to do my email campaign, I'm going to use that information to get them motivated intimately to give. So if I have sent out, let's say, 7 newsletters, and I have identified 3 or 4 different things that this individual or this group of individuals is interested in, then I'm going to craft an email marketing campaign chain that will speak specifically to that. You're talking about arts, you love the arts. So my first email is going to be, here are the things that we're doing for the arts. We love your support. My second email is going to be, here's an interesting fact, or here's a story, or whatever that is. I'm continuing that narrative with them. They're going along on this story with me. So it's a continuous conversation that I'm having. Each time I have a call to action, but I'm staying in the arts space of education because they have already told me in the past 7 emails that that's what's most important to them. If I send them an email talking about, football and basketball and volleyball sports that we have at our, education center, it's not going to resonate because they've already told me they're not interested in that. So do the work up front, collecting the right information, segment your clicks so that, or your links, so that you know who you're talking to about what. When you have an opportunity to communicate even to a smaller group about something specific, communicate to them about that. Just wanted to let you know 3 of our students received awards for the arts program. That's it. Just informational, just top of mind, no call to action, no ask, none of that stuff. Because when you create your campaign, you're going to use all that data in your campaign chain. And that campaign chain is really just to create a story that they go episode by episode. And at some point along the way, they're going to give. Okay, so that's the big thing about email marketing. This is not a one and done. You cannot send one hard email, call to action, give us some money, and then click the button to rescind in 4 days if they don't open it. It just doesn't work like that, but you will get a good return on your investment. Anything that I missed?
This is the direct mail of the 21st century, right? It is this very similar, only as far as redundancy, right? You want to touch. The difference is you can tailor it so beautifully, as Nisi said. You can make this almost to the individual. You can make it to the individual specific, but it's but at least even if you don't make it individual specific, you can know that, okay, I see from talking to my donors, there are these 5 themes that keep recurring with them. So just keep touching on those 5 themes that have to do with your mission, obviously. But it is important to be consistent, not annoying, but consistent.
Yeah, agreed. Totally agreed. The next one, we are in an instant microwave society. And so you should take advantage of those impulsive shoppers, right? Text to give is a great opportunity for you to immediately engage. There's some good old-fashioned peer pressure that goes along with it if you do the text to give at an event. It's an easy way for your advocates to share information about what you provide and who you are and what you do and a way to give. Not everybody's opening their email on their phone, but pretty much everyone is opening text messages. And so people aren't as kind of consumed or burnt out from text messages as they are from emails. Most emails give people a little bit of anxiety. And so this is another way to reach some folks that maybe you couldn't reach before. Some cons to remember: it's a fairly new concept. I say fairly new, it's been around for a while, but it's, just now starting to be picked up by the masses. Sometimes the fees are expensive. Sometimes the process to give is clunky. Just be mindful of what that process looks like for the end user. Don't make it difficult for them to kind of follow along or give, or, don't use only one specific type of payment acceptance or only one platform, like only using PayPal. Just know that you might not get all of that donor database that you need, which is why this is great at an event. So if you're going to do an event, this is a great way to leverage some last minute funds. Or if you are, going to speak, I like to use this feature. I've been called as a guest to speak about something, and the audience, or the host of the event allows it because you want to get permission. You're soliciting, so you want to get permission. I always throw in hey, if you really enjoyed this presentation or you want to give to the organization that I'm supporting, here's a really quick way to give us that information. A lot of text to give people like text to give because they don't have to give you their email information. Like, they like that. They can just give and then not feel like you're going to harass them later on. So anything on that one?
It's 100% successful and not, let me not say that. That's not exactly right. What I mean is it's 100% valuable. It is easy. I agree with Nisi. If you're invited to speak, have a text to give, then you're not trying to say, oh, here's our website, or people give you a check, and they still may give you a check, and that's a beautiful thing. Thank them. But the text to give, it works. The American Red Cross started that, and as in a big national way, and it made my life so easy. I mean, people will text you a lot of money. There are limits, but it's still a decent way. The downside is you don't have all right. You've said this, no system for capturing donor data. The data belongs to the telecommunications company, and so that's a bummer. But if you're in an emergency situation, you have a crisis in your community, you could use this for that.
Yeah, definitely. Pick and choose. We want you to pick and choose. That's why we have so many different topics. Leslie, this is probably my least favorite. I'm gonna pass the mic.
Yes, it's totally okay. It's lovely that corporations give money. For the most part, they don't give it because they are completely altruistic. It's okay. I'm a business owner. I don't always give it because it's completely altruistic. I do it personally, but if I'm sponsoring something for a business, it's because I want something out of it. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's a business transaction. So it's got to be a win for you and a win for them. Some organizations, some businesses like their names on things. So you could sell a program. It doesn't have to be a building, right? Or a room, but you could say, this is the ABC program presented by X company, or this is Wells Fargo Kids Play Day. So it's a named event. It's linked to but if you're going to give them that kind of real estate in your event, make sure you're getting enough money for it. Don't do it for a pittance. It can prove to be a very valuable collaboration in that you might get volunteers from it. So it's not all on your staff. You'll have people that will come and help you with the event. You might get it might be the beginning of a long-term relationship. And I would make that a part of your mental plan as you're developing these things, that this again isn't a one and done, that you want to have this longer term relationship. Sometimes it's a next step relationship. Maybe they've sponsored a table at an event that you've done, and that was $10,000. And you want to bring them up on the giving pool. Okay, could they sponsor a program for $25,000? But again, that's a 1 year. It's not a forever. Forever, it's going to be like many $1 million. Don't undersell the value of your products. Also, though, don't overestimate the value of your products. I've also seen that happen too. People are like, this is worth $100,000. I'm like, yep, no, it's not. Know what your reach is worth to them.
Absolutely. There's a lot of social benefits for corporations to partner with you. So keep that in mind as well. I just want to say, I noticed that we are behind on time. We're going to keep
say on this topic.
We're going to keep going, keep moving through. Feedback is really important to us. So if there's certain topics that we've talked about in this fundraising video that you're like, I need more information on that, we could potentially do a second one where we just have 3 or 4. But you can see the depth that you can go into each of these fundraising opportunities. We're going to move into the grants. Leslie mentioned that, the one grant should not be your funding plan for your nonprofit. And we understand that there's a lot of opportunity, but there's a lot of lack of equity when it comes to grants and fundraising and what that could potentially look like. Just have someone that potentially has a good depth of knowledge about the grant writing process and approval process, because those are two separate things. Also, the governance of once you have been awarded a grant also look different. Go through this next one. Here is a list of places that you could start to look for some grants. This is just a big generic list. Some of them you have to pay for, some of them you do not. You'll get this in the recording as well. I want to go to this next slide really quickly. This one is about, the different searches or website places that you can get. Here's a little summary of what's available, what's not, the price point for it. If you were ever to use a professional or consultant to help you, this would probably be the space. Just looking for grants can consume a lot of your time resource. So just be mindful that if you attach yourself to a grant professional, they probably already have a really clear system in looking for those grants that's much faster than what you have. So just be mindful of that in that process to, look for additional grant opportunities. Leslie, I'll let you take over on anything you want to add to the grants.
Yeah. It's probably, as I said earlier, only going to be about, it could be 100% of your budget, but if you make it 100% of your budget, you're leaving probably 85% of available dollars to you on the table. On top of it, anything that is heavily weighted in your budget plan puts you at a risk. I see a question here. I'll go back to it in 1 second. It puts you at risk because, like, right now, people that are very heavy into grants, I'm worried about them because grant foundations are going to be heavily impacted by the downturn in the economy because they work off of their revenue off their investment. They rarely do they touch the corpus of their dollars. So as interest rates get wonk, and I don't mean housing interest rates, as investment rates change and you get less money for your money, they're going to give out less money. Having said that, yes, is everyone affected? Of course they are. Of course we all are. However, people still have money. They still are philanthropic. They still care about your community. They still care about what you do. Somebody does. So yes, work on grants. Yes, they are valuable. You also must develop relationships with grant makers as deep as you can. Some grant makers won't talk to you. Okay. Respect that. Don't try. Don't they'll talk to me. No, they won't. But if you can meet with them, if you can invite them to your facility to see what you do, please do. Don't treat them like an ATM and there's no relationship there. You've got to develop whatever relationship with them you can. And then you must steward them and thank them in not the same way, but as you would any other donor. I mean, I could go on that topic forever. I could go on all these topics forever. So I'm happy for us to come back as I'll reiterate what Nisi said. If there are specific topics you'd like to know more about, let us know. We could do a thing just on grants and why do you hire a grant writer and what do they know that you don't know? And what are the skills I always tell people I can teach you how to write a grant, but I can't teach you how to write. You have to be a good writer, but there are skills and techniques that in grant writing.
Yeah. Andrea has a question. She says, how are salaries paid for? What percentage can we allocate for salaries? Specifically, when writing a grant, can we include the salary for the executive director? And herein lies the problem with grants.
Yes. The good news is grant making organizations are getting better in this in this realm, they used to say, we don't fund salaries. Well, that's great. Who is going to put on the program if there's no one funding a salary? They get it a little more now. There's a new phrase out in the world called trust-based funding. And they are saying now a little bit more that the foundations are saying, we'll give you money and we're going to trust that you know what to do with it. So you can pay salaries, you can pay your electric bill, you can buy equipment, you can do what you need to get your thing done. Overhead, we used to hear all the time, overhead has to be 10%. That's not real. And there's really no such thing as overhead. If you don't have an executive director steering the ship, you don't have a ship. The ship is going to run aground. So make sure that all things are paid for. So to your specific point, yes, you can put a portion of any salary into a grant. So if you are the executive director, do you work with the program manager to get it done? Do you help recruit people to, what percentage of your time gets spent in that program realm? If you're a startup, it might be 100%, it might be 90%, it depends. Put it in there. If you have a program manager, put their salary in there. Whoever touches that work touches it. Then you can have a thing called administrative costs that you can put sort of the rest of your salary in, or your bookkeeper or your operating officer, whatever it is, or your front desk person. There's ways to work in salaries, and other generic costs like electricity or IT or all the things that it costs you to run the business. You've got to figure out how to bundle that properly and represent it as a must-have for that program that you're selling, that you're asking for support for. Does that answer the question, Andrea?
Also, keep in mind that some grants will tell you they're not paying for personnel, right? So it might look like a great grant opportunity. It's in alignment with what you do and how you do it. But what you really need to do is pay for somebody to do the work. And that grant does not pay for that. They pay for other things. So here again, we just circle back, get the professional in there, because it will take you a lot of time if you're not familiar or comfortable with reading different types of grants, or you can circle in a different type of grant space. So I like, certain platforms over the others because it tells me that critical information right off the top. I don't have to go dig into it to figure out, 20 minutes later after reading through it, if I can or can't pay for certain things, right? So understanding what those platforms look like and how to read through those platforms is also, a time resource that you want to make sure that you have for that.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any other questions? We talked about a lot of stuff today, a whole lot. And I thought, oh, this will be quick little tidbits, but it's never a quick thing in nonprofit, because there's always this huge hole, black hole that you kind of sink in for everything that you do. Any questions that you guys have about any of the funding topics that we talked about? You can unmute or you can drop it in the chat.
While you're either typing or trying to get your unmute button, I will say that we're very grateful to you for coming and joining us and spending an hour with us, and a little more than an hour now. And we are available for conversation if you have specific questions. Oh, thank you. This was excellent. Thank you. The next workshop, Nisi, can you do one focused on grant writing? Sure, we can. Yep,
we can.
We could even invite a grant writer. Like, I don't professionally write grants, but I have a person on my team that does that. She could come.
Yeah, that would be perfect to her. And I don't know why this R keeps dropping. It's driving.
I know, I see that. It's so funny. So yeah, my name isn't M. Leslie Palm. It's Palmer. And that's my LinkedIn.
Yeah. So ways you can get in touch with us. Everyone that is, in this session will get a follow-up email with the recording. You'll get a link to where it's at, but you'll also get an invite to the next one. We are doing a ton of different types of kind of bumps in the road that you hit when you start a nonprofit, which is why we have the tongue in cheek. If you're thinking about starting, or you want to start a nonprofit, don't, because there's so many different things that you got to think about before you do. And so we try to do this about monthly. And so it's usually an afternoon and a Thursday. But we need feedback. So if you're like, this was great, but I really need you guys to do it on a Tuesday morning, we need that feedback so we can make some, extra accommodations. I see another question. Can
Yeah,
you
I
speak
see
about
double dipping. Yeah, tell me what you mean by that. Who's did this? Neil Stevenson. Can you just unmute and tell me what you're thinking there so I'm answering your question appropriately, or we are? Neil, no. I'm not really sure what he means by double dipping, but so I don't want to answer inappropriately.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Do we have a website? We have a newsletter. Well, that's a good idea. Thanks. More work.
Sorry,
Neil,
this is Neil.
hi, there you are, Neil. Yes. Tell me what you mean by double dipping.
So if you're writing a grant proposal and you're putting in a proportion of the executive director's salary or other costs, but of course you're writing multiple proposals to multiple potential funders,
yeah,
how is it best to deal with the issue when you're successful, nice problem to have,
yeah,
and you get some of those awards?
You give yourself a raise. No, I'm kidding.
Yes, exactly.
I'm kidding. Well, you might, because maybe you're very much underpaid. But
oh, certainly all of that. But
yeah, you put it in the salary
right?
pool, right?
Right.
So, and then it would be the most wonderful problem to have that you get salaries so fully paid for. If it happens, please email me immediately, because I am going to give you a high five. So I would say it is perfectly okay to ask more than one funder for the same thing, right? The older you are in, I don't mean as age as a human, but in business, the longer you are alive as an organization, you will start to see what your trend is on your success rate. So is it 1 in 3, 1 in 4, 1 in 5? And that is yes to no's, not no's to yeses, sadly. And so if it takes you 1 in 4, which is the average, you've got to write 4 to get 1. So if you're writing 8, it is okay, because then you might get 2. If you have said, I need this salary and this salary and this electric bill and that IT bill, and you get 2, pay the next bill. You know what I mean? Like, it's totally okay. You're just building a stronger platform for you to run your programming or your organization at that whole.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I hope that answered the question you were seeking. Well, please know that we're here. You can connect with us on LinkedIn. Yes, Nisi is really good at all this. Like, yes, you'll get a newsletter, or you'll hear from us, because Nisi's brilliant. And I just say yes to what Nisi tells me to do. But we are happy to continue a conversation. So please know that we mean that. Please feel free to reach out. All righty. I hope you all have a wonderful day and a nice rest of your week. As we
enjoy it. Almost weekend. Almost the weekend.
Almost weekend. You've made it over hump day.
All right, everyone. The recording will go out. It takes about 35 minutes sometimes. I'm not sure why, probably the length of recording, before it's all done and wrapped up in Zoom. And once they send it, we'll upload it and we'll send it off to you guys. And you should get it in an email that will actually come from like Eventbrite, like it's coming from Eventbrite, like you got your notification. Okay. Right. All right. Well, thank you so much. We hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good one.